you know Christmas is coming, New Year's is right after that, and sometimes you can feel a little sluggish. And maybe it's just me, Eric, but I feel like I have to pull just a little bit harder to get where I want to be this time of year.
You have to spend a little bit of energy, a little bit of extra energy to do something that's going to help you get ahead of all this urgent stuff that's happening, until eventually most of the things that you end up working on are just quadrant two, right? They're still important, but they're not urgent anymore because you've had the forethought and the investment in energy ahead of time to make sure that they don't fall back into quadrant one.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Bug Bucks podcast. I'm Alan Draper. I've got Eric Bassett here with me. What's going on, Eric?
Hey, Alan, not too much. It is cooling off for me anyway. We saw some snow. So, it's kind of that first sign that winter is here. But, working on some things, looking forward to the prep season continuing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's feeling pretty busy this time of year, which is a great sign. Because it takes a little bit of the load off during the busy season, the quote unquote busy season, April through September, whatever it is. So, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to get into some of the do's and don'ts of the holiday season, how to keep people motivated, how to keep people on task. What are the types of things that you should be working on? And we're going to get into that a little bit. Before we do, make sure that you find and request to join our Bug Bucks group on Facebook. That's BUGBUX, Bug Bucks. We have over 31 PCOs in there now, 3,100, I should say. We have over 3,100 PCOs in there. And we just have great conversations, everything ranging from, how do I handle this personnel issue to, the other day, I think it might've been just yesterday, Eric, somebody asked, hey, what are the top KPIs or metrics that your business focuses on, like the top 3 or something? That's a fantastic question.
Oh yeah.
And, generated some great discussions. So anyway, make sure to join that group as we talk about what we should be focused on this time of year and how to stay motivated and keep on track when, the holiday season is around the corner. We're recording this the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. And sometimes you can feel a little sluggish. Christmas is coming, New Year's is right after that. And maybe it's just me, Eric, but I feel like I have to pull just a little bit harder to get where I want to be this time of year.
No, it's not you at all. I feel like that happens to a lot of people. Our business is so seasonal that we think that it's like all work during the summer, maybe spring, fall, and then winter is like all the time off. It's when you do all the stuff, it's when you take advantage of all the time with your families and things you promised your buddies that you would do with them when you weren't so quote unquote busy, right? And it takes a lot of extra effort to stay focused on things that your pest control company still needs from you during this time of year.
Yeah, 100%. And there's so much. I actually just looked across my desk and I saw my copy of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I talk about that book a lot. Okay. I get it. I think it is probably a top 3 business book of all time, top 3 leadership, personal development, business book of all time. I've read it several times, but, and I've mentioned this concept and you and I have talked about it, Eric, but that's, you work on the quadrant 2 stuff, which for people that don't know what that means, it's the things that are important, but not urgent. And I think we can fall into the trap a little bit, Eric, when they're not urgent, because we have to change our mindset. Because a lot of times, especially in this industry, man, we put out a lot of fires and it feels like, April or March or whenever your really busy season begins till, the end of summer, early fall, it feels like that's all you're doing. And so especially in this industry and retail, I think retail gets it. Restaurants get it around the holidays. There's certain times, but it's pretty much half our year, right? And there's no other industry really, like I think CPAs, they have the busy, tax prep season,
Mm-hmm.
but we have to make sure that we get out of this mentality of, okay, if it's not a fire, if it's not urgent, I'm not going to do it. That's one thing I'm worried about.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of people, I think, just live their life that way. They only have so much energy to focus on what's going on right now. So it is both urgent and important. That's the quadrant one stuff. And you really have to fight to move things from quadrant one to quadrant two, right? You have to put in extra effort when you're done with all the quadrant one stuff that's happening right now. You have to spend a little bit of energy, a little bit of extra energy to do something that's going to help you get ahead of all this urgent stuff that's happening, until eventually most of the things that you end up working on are just quadrant two, right? They're still important, but they're not urgent anymore because you've had the forethought and the investment in energy ahead of time to make sure that they don't fall back into quadrant one. So it's a mindset change. And for people who haven't read the 7 Habits, absolutely read it. One of my favorites too. But it's a mindset change from operating within quadrant one to operating within quadrant two. And that's what gives you the freedom to really start capitalizing on these things that you can't really capitalize on in the heat of the moment.
Yeah. Footnote here. Eric just said, if you haven't read it, read it. That is a great quadrant two activity. Read a business, self-development, leadership, some type of motivational, some type of educational book during this time of the year. And but let's talk a little bit about this. Let's talk about people that have this perspective of, I only put out fires. And I'm going to be honest with you. I follow a lot of our listeners on social media. I think I follow over 700-800 of them. And I've noticed that their recreation has shot through the roof, which I get it. Like, you deserve it. I have a buddy and he knows exactly who I'm talking about. He's in the Northern California market. And I tease him because I don't ever see him. It seems like he's never in his office or working, but he has a very successful company. So whatever he is doing is working. But that being said, like, enjoy the slow time for sure. Spend time with your family. Holidays are important. Goes without saying. Setting that aside for just a second, or with that in mind, what are the ways that we can focus, kind of re-emphasize these quadrant two behaviors and actions, and add a little bit of this, urgent pressure on ourselves? What are some tricks? What are some hacks? What are some things that we can do to make sure that we're not overlooking something and kicking it to the next year? I've done that, where it's like, oh, I'm going to review the legality and certain provisions of our customer service agreement this year. And then all of a sudden I'm like, it's March 30th. And I'm like, okay, we have to do it next year. Done that before. Yep. How do we do that, one, for ourselves? And how do we show the people around us, encourage them and motivate them to do the same?
One thing that we talk about as a company every year around this time is identifying, a wildly important goal, something that we can focus on that's really going to make the biggest impact on our business by the end of the next year. And when we start having those conversations, we usually write down what we call a mercy list. And I think I've talked about this before, but you identify what thing would make the biggest impact for your business. And then you start making a little checklist of what things that goal is at the mercy of, right? So for example, if a goal that you have is company growth, right? Then your mercy list is going to have to do with your cost per lead goals, your marketing budgets, sales revenue goals, lead volume from your marketing company, a door-to-door plan. If you're using door-to-door, that breaks down into recruiting and events and, that whole door-to-door program. But for me right now, to give you guys an example, by the time that this podcast episode drops, I will likely have just finished having a long discussion with my marketing company about what my growth goals are.
Mm-hmm.
And those growth goals, you know, whether I take my sales revenue from this past year and I increase that, or whether I take my lead volume number from this last year and I increase that, all those are going to be tied into what I can agree on as my cost per lead number. That's going to affect my budget, right? I have to make sure that my staffing for all my inside sales team is squared away, and I have a solid plan for that, whether it includes onboarding and training or not. So all of those things are going to be affecting how well I can grow this next year. And in previous episodes, we've talked about how because of inflation, and because of other increasing costs, and because our pest control companies are always at the mercy of attrition, growth is kind of our best friend. It's going to be the thing that kind of saves us in the long term. So for me, growth goals and kind of identifying those before January rolls around is actually really important. I need to have that ironed out before this next year rolls around. Otherwise, I feel like I am losing traction on any growth goals that I have.
I'm going to try to restate what you said, Eric, because I feel like it's super important. One, and two, I want to make sure that, you know, I apply it to what I'm trying to accomplish with proof. And that is you look forward towards your goals for the next year. And now's a great time to do that as the year's wrapping up, as a lot of our financial years in at the end of December also. You look forward to the goals, and then you kind of look at what the path is to get there. I always say that when you're setting goals, you want to start with the goal, then you identify where you are, and then you create the plan on how to get there. And I think that's a little bit about what you're saying, because you were saying what are the things that achieving that goal are contingent upon. And I think that is a great perspective. And I think this is going to be a key for people staying focused this time of year. Is let's look at the bigger picture. Let's look at what we want to achieve and what we're going to have to do to get there. What's going to stop us from achieving that, and focusing on those things. And I think with that perspective, it really helps us understand how important this time of year is, and kind of taking it a step further for the people that have tried to do the important, not urgent stuff when it's too late, when it becomes urgent. Things like creating hiring policies for technicians, and a plan for how many technicians you're going to need, and the trucks and the equipment. If you're doing that stuff in June, you're just, I mean, besides the fact that it's not going to be efficient, you're going to create headaches for yourself and your team. It's going to be almost impossible to do it. It might be too late, especially when you're trying to hire good help. But if you have back in, you know, and I feel like there's some listeners out there that are like, you know what, I do this every year where I want to get it done in November, December, January, and I end up waiting. So now's the time. I mean, listening to this podcast is a really great reminder. Hey, you need to get your butt in gear for next year. But keeping that goal in mind, I think that's the best suggestion that I could give, you know, is what Eric just said. Keep that goal in mind of where you want to be, you know, work backward. What are the things that are going to prohibit me from getting there? What are the things that I need to knock out to get there? And then I'd take it one step further as we're talking about, well, how do I get my team to be on that same page? You tell them, you share this vision, and you share your goals with them. You make sure they're on board with them, with those goals. Hopefully they're setting the goals right along with you. And then you have this conversation. Hey, these are the things that we've got to do, and this is why we're doing it. A lot of times as owners, sometimes we think, you know, no, this is what we're doing. It's like almost like our employees or a team are like kids. Like when my 4-year-old starting to ask me why quite a lot. And I'm just like, that's just the way it is. Why? Right? Your employees have that right. And if you want to get them on board with where you want to be in 2023, you have to communicate with them and you have to show them, hey, this is why, because they might look at things differently and say, hey, actually, if this is our goal, Eric, right? If this is our goal for summer 2023, then maybe we need to approach, how we order vehicles differently. Or maybe we need to start hiring in March as opposed to April or whatever.
Yeah, you got to be willing to look at your current processes that you have in place right now and come at it with an open mindset where you say, you know what, this is how we've been doing it and that's worked out okay, but could there be a better way? And if that better way includes us getting started earlier, what kind of resources are we going to need to allocate in order to make sure that that happens? Because every year, I don't know if I've ever been in a situation where I thought to myself, oh man, like I got ahead of myself there. Like I really didn't need those resources. Or man, I just hired one too many technicians. Shouldn't have hired that guy. I mean, it always comes around full circle where I go, wow, not only did I need to hire that guy or do that thing or put that thing in place, but I actually could have done more. Right. So, I find myself kind of falling behind a little bit. And that's just kind of the nature of the game, is that you're likely to always be just a little bit behind the curve. But the more that you prepare yourself, the less that deficit behind the curve is. So you just have to have some forethought when it comes to it. One thing I wanted to mention when it comes to bringing your whole team on board, we've talked about vision a lot, and having a vision that you are tied to and having a goal that corresponds to that vision, and having, your vision correspond to what the wants and needs are of your team, right? I like to believe that everybody that works at our pest control companies have their own professional vision of where they want to go, what they want to accomplish. And sometimes it helps to kind of talk to them about that, sit down and have a conversation where you say, hey, so I know that this is what you were able to accomplish this year. Tell me how that fits into what your end goal is here. Where do you want to see yourself in 3 to 5 years? Is it here? Is it somewhere else? How do I get you there or get you wherever you want to be? And then tell them about your vision for the company. This is what I want to do this next year. And if we can accomplish this, I think that it'll help you accomplish your goals as well. It kind of helps you tie in the value that they see in their vision with the vision that you have for your company. And if I would say, like, the closer that those visions are, the more fluid the efforts are going to be between you and your team.
Well, I know what I'm doing as soon as we hit the off button or finish this recording, and that is I'm sending an email to David, and I just have another item for our annual reviews, and that is the question, tell me about where you are, where you want to be, and how Proof's going to get you there. Because when you 100%. Align interests, that's one of the most important things that we do as PCOs, is we're trying to align interests. And a lot of people don't think about it this way, but we are trying to make our goals become theirs and vice versa. And when we, and you can think of it on a really simple scale. You want, inside sales to have a certain close rate. So what do? You can do a bunch of things, commissions, you can do bonus tiers, you can do incentives, you can talk about it a lot, it can become part of your culture. But by doing that, you're making your interest, the closing rate being a certain percentage, aligned with their interests, incentives, recognition, all these things, advancements, whatever. And I think the other thing, the real touch here, Eric, is when you say, hey, how is XYZ Pest Control going to help you get where you want to be? You're retaining employees. Because not a lot of people are doing that. Not a lot of people are having those conversations. So this time of year, when you're spending time looking toward 2023, you're working on projects that are important and not urgent. don't forget your people, because they're doing the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. They're working on things, or they should be. They're setting goals for 2023, personal goals. And when you have that conversation with them, hey, how does proof help you achieve and obtain your personal goals? And that hits different.
Yeah, well, and I think as entrepreneurs, we often understand that it's the long-term vision that can get us out of bed in the morning, right? When things are tough and you're not feeling good and you're not feeling like you want to put in that time, it's the vision that pulls you out of bed, that gets you back to work.
Exactly.
And, in the very beginning, when you hire somebody, it's super basic. It's like, man, I have money. I wish I could hire someone to do a job. And somebody comes along who says, man, I have time. I wish I could get hired to do work and get paid money for it. And all of a sudden, those wants and needs align on a very basic level between employers and employees. But money isn't enough. It usually ends up never being enough, right? And so if you can look deeper into the vision, and if your vision is what wakes you up in the morning, and you can tie that to that employee's vision, then whether or not work's going well, whether or not they are feeling it or feeling good or whatever, they will show up because it's their vision now that's getting them out of bed in the morning. And that vision aligns with yours.
Yeah, that's awesome. That reminds me of something that Simon Sinek said, and I'm going to totally butcher it. And so maybe we'll put a link to it in the show notes. But he said something about how if something about how if somebody works for you because you pay the most, all they'll ever do is work for you for money. But if they believe what you believe, then they'll work for you with their heart, right? And it sounds super cheesy. I can tell like there are people that are like, guys, we're killing bugs out here. But I think within any organization, you can have a higher purpose. You can. And as Zig Ziglar said, the best way to get, or the quickest way to get what you want, is to help the most people get what they want. And these are the things that separate the elite companies from the rest of the pack. It is these soft intangibles, Eric, that we're talking about, that you go to a company, it just feels kind of different, and there are brand names that we're all familiar with that that you go there and you just feel kind of different. And that's what it is. They have this culture of taking care of people, aligning interests, and it's not just something on their mission statement that's in a dusty plaque on the wall. It's something that they practice. And the interesting thing is, and I think I've said this before, that if you put people first and your culture first, the profits and the growth will certainly come. But if you put the profits and the growth first, the people and the culture may not ever lag behind.
Yep. Well, and we talk about that mercy list of goals that you have, and the culture of your company and the people in your company. Your goals are at the mercy of them. Your goals are at the mercy of how they view their jobs and responsibilities, and how they view their future at your company. If that's not aligned, if they're not thinking that that makes a difference, then that's when they stop showing up, whether they're there in person or not. They can not show up and still be there physically. We've all seen that. So it makes a difference when you start investing in your people and start investing in what they want and start connecting the dots. Then they start showing up in ways that you would never expect just an employee to show up for you.
100%. We're wrapping up here. Before we do, we're going to do this kind of impromptu list of projects that we're working on this time of year and that we recommend others. I'd like it to be as specific as possible, and we're spitballing here. We didn't really prepare this, so let me start. This is a great time of year to be working on anything that is a long-term project, like brand development, for example. You're working on writing blog posts and working on your website, SEO. Great time of year for this. Working on content on your website, any type of policy or procedure. If during the summer, it wasn't clear about what was required in order to request some time off, now's a great time to work on that. What is your policy if one of your people want to request time off? How much time in advance? How much time do they get off? How do they earn time? Make that as clear as possible. So any type of policy, any type of program, it's also a great time to review. It's a great time to audit. It's a great time to listen to phone calls, listen to the sales pitch that the inside salespeople are working on, listen to how technicians are conversing with customers. Go on ride-alongs with them. Don't assume your technicians are going step by step through the protocol. If you don't have a service protocol, now's a great time to draft a service protocol. I think projects like that, and even if you do have a service protocol, review it. Has anything over the last 6-8 months changed your perspective of your protocol? Maybe in whatever market you're in, maybe, you need to mix things up. So those are the types of things that we're working on. Another couple, Eric, we're working on looking at projections. So goals, we talked about that a little bit. And we're also setting budgets. And the way that we set budgets is we start with our top line revenue. So whatever we want our goals to be for 2023, and then we'll work backward, just like you were saying, and we'll work on the individual line items using percentage of gross revenue. So for example, if my company made top line revenue of $100,000 gross revenue, and we spent $10,000 on trucks, then if I'm going to do $1 million in revenue in 2023, then how much am I going to spend on trucks, right? And there is this economy of scale that you have to impute there, but you have a really good starting point, and budgets just kind of keep you on target. And when you set budgets that way, if for example, our vehicle costs this year went through the roof, and we're still trying to figure out exactly what happened. We have a couple of ideas, but when you budget like that, you're like, oh, with this amount of growth, we should have only spent, 30 grand on vehicles, and we spent 50. Then whether you're on track in March, April versus doing what we're doing and scrambling a little bit at the end of the year.
Yeah, 100%. And everything that you're saying tracks with what we've been looking at too. Systems, processes. I can finally say that if you guys had messages from vendors, people who want you to look at their product, look at different things, now could be a good time to start vetting some of those guys. Reach out to them, say, hey, let's sit down, let's look at your product. We'll give you a few weeks to take a peek at it. Now you guys actually have time to do that. Another thing that we did recently is so I installed the dash cam on one of our newer vehicles. We just got a new fleet of vehicles, and on one of my newer vehicles, I installed this dash cam on it because I'm OCD about my fleet vehicles and dash cams and other things that go into them. And while I was doing it, I filmed the install so that I can make a training video, so that I can share that training video with the service manager and all the technicians. So when I say, hey, I just hand them a dash cam and I say, install this, I can say, watch this video. And I know that they will install it exactly the way that I want them to, right? So pro tip, if you're going to do anything that takes, especially something that takes a lot of time, find a way that technology can be your friend. Either video it, or record the audio, or type it up and save it on a shared drive. Do something so that the next time that someone needs access to that information, it's not taking your time to explain it. You say, hey, here's this Google Doc, here's this video, here's this audio recording, here's this slideshow presentation, whatever it is. Technology is your friend, but it takes some extra time now. You'll get that time back in the future.
Exactly. I think that's a great idea. If there's anything where you could replicate yourself, it takes longer to do it initially. And as PCOs, sometimes it's like, oh, I'm busy, I'll just do it myself. That's important, urgent. The important non-urgent is, this is frustrating, it's going to take me more time, to teach somebody, but come June, July, I'll have 10 people that know how to do it versus just me. Another thing I wanted to add, kind of a side note, is I was working with this larger corporation, and and they're very good at training. And they shared some statistics with me about how people are learning now, and how the younger generations, people in their 20s and 30s are learning. And they're like, it's almost all video. So you mentioned like you showing somebody how to install something with video. That's exactly on par with what studies are showing about how people are learning. So if you hand somebody, I'm telling you, if you hand them a document and expect them to read it, they may get through some of it. And some people, there may be a handful of people that do, and they understand and they learn the material. But the more video, and as you said, technology that you can add to something, the better trained your people are going to be. They're going to really appreciate you. And that really is another thing to separate you from the pack when it comes to hiring and retaining top people. So
100%. Yeah. Work smarter, not harder. And in most cases with us, it's both. But
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of dealing in the scenario where the people that we're hiring are within an age group. And I don't like using the terminology that divides generations, millennials and Gen X and all this other stuff. But it's undeniable that there are preferences when it comes to how people take in information, right? I'm a very visual learner. When I want to learn something, I just Google it or YouTube it, and I love videos. Videos are great because I'm a visual learner or a kinesthetic learner, right? Some people are auditory. They like to hear stuff. Some people are like tactile, which means they need to write it down and take notes, not just feel it like kinesthetic learners are. So lots of different things to keep in mind, but I love what you said. Technology, it sets you apart. The more that you can use it, the more people will appreciate it, and the better that it sticks.
Yeah, 100%. And now's a great time of year because the video is not going to be perfect the first time. But and that's another great thing to add, is just creating a library of how-tos. One thing that we're starting to implement is this cross job pursuit, or basically I take somebody from one role and I give them what our training material is and have them do another role and see if they can do it. And so now's a great time, more videos, creating more content. And you're 100% right about the different learning styles and how there are some tendencies in certain groups. And I wanted to share this because I almost died of laughter, and I put on my Instagram, but I was talking to my mom on Sunday, and for some reason she was super worried about my cryptocurrency. And for my mom, who's probably not listening, it's not a big part of what I do. Like, I talk about it a little bit, but for some reason she was like, I think she saw the news bit and I think she wanted to say the word cryptocurrency. But anyway, toward the end of the conversation, once I let her know that everything was going to be just fine, she said something like, so by the way, do you keep your cryptocurrency in the iCloud? And I just about died. Bless my mom's heart. I mean, she got halfway there, I think, but I think as we kind of talk to people the way that they need to be spoken to, and we're doing that, especially with training this time of year, we can make a lot of progress. So
100%. Yep.
All right. Well, I mean, we covered a lot of ground. I think we went a little wider than we did deep. We got some good tips in there, but I just want to make sure that people aren't falling into this lull, because there's a lot that can be done this time of year. This is the growth period in my opinion, and there's lots of opportunity out there. There's going to be lots of opportunity with what's I see is happening with the economy. I think pest control is going to be, I think we're going to hold out just fine. But there's going to be some opportunity out there, especially with good people, especially mid to upper level management. There's going to be a lot of those types of people on the market. And there are going to be people out there that are converting to different industries. I talked to a buddy, very talented buddy this morning at the gym, and he was always in HR, very talented. And he got let go by a well-known large corporation just through layoffs. And he told me that now he took on a sales role. So a smaller company picked up somebody that, has some experience in a larger corporation just because of that. So I want to make sure PCOs are on the lookout for that. And don't forget, go to our Facebook group, Bug Bucks, BUG, make sure to join it, and we'll catch you next time.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please show your support by subscribing and leaving us a 5-star rating. Thank you, and we'll catch you on next week's episode.